I went over there with a little metal pail and asked for scraps like chicken heads and fish heads, and I brought them home to my mother, and she would make soups out of them. And then I went to the open air market, and I got wooden fish crates, to make a fire so we could cook. So it was pretty difficult. And when I was 6, I entered school, and I was so excited about going to school because I always wanted to prove myself. I wanted to do well. I remember holding my notebook and saying, I'm going to do really well. But I'm telling you, it was a rude awakening. I could not follow the concepts of the teacher. I just needed more time. Not that I was unintelligent or anything like that. I just needed more time, which they did not understand. And in the end of the year, I was condemned dumb. She condemned me dumb to my mother. So that's another strike. It all just less and less self-esteem. And so I had to repeat that first grade. And then at the age of 7, my mother reconnected with an old schoolmate who just returned from Siberia. He was imprisoned for 5 years in Siberia, where very few people came back. There were terrible conditions, and I think that impacted his life as well. Well, she brought him home and she said, now you have a father. And I was delighted to call him Papa right away because I always wanted a father. And in the beginning, he was a tailor by profession. I think that saved his life in Siberia because he mended the uniforms for the soldiers. And so when he sewed for us clothing and we ate regular meals. And I was just delighted to have a father. But then he moved in, and then we saw another side of him. And that was that he worked hard during the week, but he'd get drunk on weekends. He'd disappear and get drunk, not come home and get drunk. And I remember our first Christmas waiting for him, and he wouldn't come, wouldn't come home at all that night. My mother started to have brutal verbal fights with him, and sometimes even physical fights. And I remember as a little girl saying to myself, when I grow up, it's going to be different. That. So eventually she did stay with him and got married when I was 13. They lived for years together. And when I was 13, they got married because they decided to immigrate to Canada. That was at that time called the land of milk and honey. Everybody thought, we're going to have a better life there. And so my mother married him in order to be able to immigrate. So once we immigrated, we thought now our troubles would be over when we left. Before that, my mother took us, my sister and myself, and talked to us and said to us, remember this is not a marriage or a union of love. This is a meal ticket. So we accepted his presence and just concentrated on immigrating. So when we arrived, we thought our troubles were over, but the first winter we went hungry. We fell into despair again because he could not find work as a tailor. So we were running out of food, and my mother had the only thing she could think of, go to the church. So she took me by the hand and she said, we both explained our plight to the priest in our broken English. We knew very little English. And the priest sympathetically handed us $35. And my mother went out to buy flour and rice, the staples, so it would hold us over a little longer. And and then at 14, I left school because we needed the money, and my mother had gotten a special permit from the government because of that child labor law. And so I entered the workforce. I was willing, wanted to work. I became attractive and looked a little older than I actually was. I did not look like 14, and I skin like peaches and cream. And I worked for this dentist who promised he would train me to become a dental assistant. So I was full of hope. But again, there was another disappointment. encountered severe sexual harassment, not by my boss, but by a friend who came in when he was not there. So I left that job and went to Woolworths, the 5 and 10 cent store. And I worked behind the lunch counter and served and made sandwiches. And I actually liked it because I always had that feeling. I always had an awareness of service, making others feel good. So I made these sandwiches with care and heart, I tell you. And but at the same time, I always had that feeling I wanted to improve my station in life. So I decided to go to night school, and I learned to type, stenography and typing. I learned that. And eventually I got a job at Volkswagen, you know, the Volkswagen car. I got a job there in the accounting department, and I was so disappointed there. It was a huge room. I was working with women that were over twice my age, there was no camaraderie, you know, there was no life. It just, they were like mindless drones just stamping, you know, documents. And I thought I didn't want their life to be mine. And I remember going up to that accounting department, walking up the stairs and clenching my fingers into the railing and saying, I hate this, I hate this. I became increasingly unhappy and I spiraled into deep depression. And in those years, I've saved money and had bought myself a used car. And I heard somewhere that when you start the motor and close the garage door, you would, you know, die from carbon monoxide. So I thought I did just that. I had rented a garage nearby the place where we lived. And I walked in there, I closed the garage door, started the motor, and waited for my ultimate end. And all of a sudden, a little girl stood in front of me. She must have been about 6, and I still remember her face, that cropped hair, short dress. And she asked me, what are you doing? And I came to attention. I said, I'm going to wash my car. I immediately turned off the motor and opened the garage door. And I realized, how did she come? And she arrived, she must have come through a side door that I was not aware of. I did not think of that there was a side door. She came in through that door. So I'm telling you, it made me think. I don't even know her name, but over the years, I always thought about that little girl, and I thought it was kind of like a miracle. You ask yourself, are we destined to arrive at a certain time and leave it on another? It really raises questions. And so I had a glimmer of hope. I held on to that hope, and I went back to work, continued my daily routine. Eventually, a position was opened up down in the service department, customer service department, and I applied for it as a secretary for the service manager, and I immediately got the job. And down there, I was much happier because I was around people. I wanted life. I felt alive. And when I was close to 20, a man walked in. He bought a Porsche and he became my husband. And from then on, the pendulum swung from sadness and desperation to happiness and hope. And I owe a lot to my husband. He also was an immigrant, a German immigrant and a child of the war, so we could relate to many of the stories and that kind of a life. And he always encouraged me to learn and grow and to embrace opportunities. And we welcomed 2 children in the first years of our marriage, and then we took a big step. We immigrated this time to the United States. And there my husband became very successful. He in his business and also investments in real estate out in California. And in all that time, he kept encouraging me to just learn and grow. And I learned to pilot a plane. I ran a marathon. I did, I helped him in his business. So from that weakest link, I became stronger and stronger. And then we took another step, a big step. we wanted to become citizens of the United States. And I remember when the speaker welcomed us as a citizen, I became so emotional. I became so emotional. I thought, this country, I wanted to be a citizen of this country, and they chose to accept me. And I never had that sense of belonging before. So I'm very grateful to this country for the opportunities, because I believe to this day, this country, there are a lot of opportunities if you're willing to put in the effort. If you're willing to work, if you're willing to do that, there are opportunities. It's not going to be easy, but perseverance and determination, with that, I think you can make it. So we finally became American citizens. Our life got better and better. And then as I turned 70, I tell you, Altavis, this is the most beautiful decade of my life. That's when I came into my own. I became who I was always meant to be. I no longer wavered from insecurities and doubted my abilities. I became firm in my convictions and sense of self. And I think I owe it all to my husband, because he was the wind beneath my wings. And that's when I decided I'm going to give him this present. I wrote this book for his 80th birthday to thank him for all he's done for me. And then as I wrote the book, I felt liberated, and I felt maybe I can help people, because I've gone through a lot. And when you think about this time where so many people are now, they're so desperate because look what we're going through, that I think I can help, because I've gone through worse. And I think when we have hope, we can, and have a focus on a purpose. I think purpose is key here. I think then we can overcome these challenges. Life will get better. It's not static. It changes even when you don't want it to. So I feel with this book, I decided to publish my book. It was received well. I mean, I did not have to self-publish. It was accepted by a publisher. And I thought, maybe I can reach people. Maybe I can do something good, because I certainly succeeded, and I have no needs at all other than loving people, to love and give, because that's the meaning of life. Generosity, gratitude, and an awareness of service. And now I'm 77, and I tell you a secret, there is no age. As long as you are interested in life, you remain interested, and you have a curiosity, I think there is a powerful reserve of wisdom and an emerging energy to do something new, to do something that you haven't done before, and to say, which I'm doing right now, to say what I want to say. Years ago, I would not have been able to say what I'm saying today. I would not have been able to. I needed that experience, that life experience. So that is basically but I can tell you, this is the most, I'm now 77, and it's the most beautiful time of my life.
Oh, I can definitely say, and Speakeasy podcast listeners, she does not look 77.
Because you see me.
She looks
I think
very youthful, and just listening to, man, just all of the things that you've overcome to get to where you are. First and foremost, being able to share all of that is necessary, because I think a lot of times we get to a certain point and we're like, if I tell my story, what is it going to change?
Right. Oh, Altavis, you're so right, because at first, when I wrote everything, I thought, you reveal everything, because you face vulnerability, because people don't want certain things they may not want people to know. But I decided I'm going to say everything, because otherwise I would be cheating the reader. Don't you think?
So I definitely agree. I think that's, and I think So, Speakeasy podcast listeners, those of you who are thinking about writing a book, that you've been starting to write the book, or you've just published the book, that's something for you to think about, because guess what? You never know whose life is going to be changed by the words that you put in that book. You don't know how far it's going to reach or who it's going to touch, simply because you took the time to serve in that capacity.
You're so right. And another thing I wanted to mention, I did have one more challenge once I turned 70, and it came at a time where I was already strong enough to face that. I was diagnosed with breast cancer, but stage 1. But nonetheless, when the doctor told me you have cancer, the blood just rushed into my face, and I thought, no, this can't be. This can't be. And I had to digest that and swallow that bitter pill. And I went home and I said, how am I going to face cancer? How am I going to handle cancer? And I decided to be positive, to approach it in the most positive way. And I did not want to be a victim. And I could see the moment I decided I'm going to take a positive route, I already felt a shift inside me. My old resilient self came back. And I went through the operation, through the 6 weeks of radiation, the pill for 5 years, and so on. Thank heavens I'm cancer free. It again changed my life in a sense that each day when, the face death, or the thought of death, can be a good thing, because you start approaching life in a different way. Each moment is precious. Every moment becomes precious. Life becomes more illuminated, more vivid. And so it changed something, but it made me better. There's even more gratitude, because I think all these challenges, they have given me the ultimate gift, a profound sense of gratitude. And I think that's key. I think gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. I think to be grateful is everything. And that's a different thing to just say, oh, I'm grateful, I've got this, I'm grateful, I've got that. Great to be grateful for everything. So you will be a changed person if you have that philosophy.
It's definitely a great philosophy to live by, and one that I think it takes some time to get to that being a consistency in our lives. I know, when we're making that transition, some people, they're like, I just can't see it. I just can't see the positive. But you may not be able to see everything that's positive, but you can see one positive thing.
And thoughts increase. They get bigger. You have a positive thought, it grows. You have a negative thought, that grows. And so you decide, are you going to be a magnet of negativity or a magnet of positivity? I'm a magnet of positivity. And I think my life is, I have the most peaceful, well-lived, appreciated life that you can imagine. I think I'm the most blessed person on earth. That's how I feel. And I think with having positive attitude, and if people think I'm going to have this, do this, and that, it's not done that fast. You have to apply it every single day of your life. It's like having a philosophy. To have a philosophy is useless if it's nothing but the awareness and the teachings and rituals of the experts. Yes, you know about it, but you have to apply it. It has to be an energy pattern that you use every moment of your life. And then, it has to be a part of you. And that don't expect it to happen overnight. But if you start with one little step, it grows, just like a thought. It grows, it grows. Oh, it's nice to get old. I tell you, Artemis, aging is beautiful if you have the right attitude, if you understand life. I've always been a seeker and a searcher, even as a child. I mean, I can go on and on. There are more interesting things, but I've always been a seeker and a searcher. And I'm glad I was. And I'm glad I went through the challenges, because they made me appreciate. They made me what I am today. They made me strong. So people should not despair. They should welcome the changes, just like they welcome the joys in their lives. That you should embrace the changes and the challenges, embrace the challenges, and overcome them, and that makes you stronger and bigger. This is life. I mean, life gives exams. We have to go through them. It's up to us how we handle it.
I love what you said when you said destined to arrive. Man, I think when we get to that point where we can just grab a hold of it, that where we are right now is not the only place we'll ever be. Where we are right now is a moment in the journey. It's not even the full-fledged destination. It's just a stop. It's momentary. Then that helps us to tap into that gratitude. It helps us to tap into understanding that I'm destined to arrive somewhere great. So even if what I'm going through right now is not my greatest moment, even if I mess up, even if something is, literally it doesn't look the way I thought it was supposed to look, I'm destined to arrive somewhere greater. So I just got to keep going.
Right. You have to see Martin Luther King said that so beautiful. I think he said no, this is Martin Luther King's. This was who said this? That at the end of that, hope is to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. That is hope. But to have hope is so important. And I also believe, and I write my thoughts in my book quite well, because I write my thoughts on life. I feel that we are just in this vessel. Our body is just a vessel that our soul lives in, where we reside for a time being. And I think while we are here, we should make the best of what God made. Learn, grow, be kind to one another, and just have no ugly thoughts. If you can live in a way where you have no unloving thoughts, you become that person. And I think in the end, when the body goes, I think what you've learned, your character, that you take with you, because that's invisible. That can't change. Anything that's material will change. But have you ever cut up a thought? Really think about it. So I believe I don't see even the end. I'm 77, so who knows how long I still have. I'd certainly want to be around for a long time, but because I enjoy life so much, and I think I still have much to give. But when the time comes, I take that with me. I think our invisible self is real. We just can't map it. We can't. That's how I believe, and that's why I think aging is beautiful. Wisdom.
Yeah, that's it. That's it in a nutshell. Is the wisdom. Speakeasy podcast listeners, I've been talking with Miss Vivianne, and I am, oh my goodness, I am blessed to be able to have this conversation right now, because, I just reached 40, and to be able to say that I just reached 40 is, a milestone, but it's also exciting, because I know that there are so many more years ahead of me. I know that there are so many other experiences that I will come in contact with, and having conversations like the one I'm having right now that you guys are listening in on, it allows us to know and to tap into the things that are the most important. Like we get so bogged down with what other people tell us is so important, or what the commercials on television tell us are most important. But if we really learn to tap into the things that are most important. At the heart and core of it, it's service and love. And I think if you listen into Vivianne's story, it's literally been service and love. It was the service and love of her mother, wanting something better for her. It was the service and love, of her wanting something better for herself. And even when finding and connecting with her husband, it was that service and love that led to something beautiful. And so when we look at our own lives, determining that we're going to grab a hold of with both hands service and love, I think that can take us so much further than some of the other things that are being kind of thrown at us on a regular basis. That service and love are valuable.
You're right. And Idovis, also the time that we're going through, these times are very hard for many people. I think they also have a good side, because I see that people start to slow down and pay attention to the things that matter more, instead of just running after your own shadow. For me, it is not such a big adjustment, because I've always been a thinker, and I read and I study the poetry and study the philosophies of the great masters. They help us make sense of the world. They give us values. That's how I spend a lot of my time. So my life hasn't changed so much, but I think it changes a lot of lives for the better as well. I really do. And I also wanted to mention one more thing. I want to help young people. When I was 17 and I attempted to take my life, I want young people to know that not to give up, to have hope, because their perspective is different. They have very little sense of perspective. They think life will not change. It'll stay that way. That's what I thought. And if I can help, and there are a lot of young people, that's a very delicate time. I would not be in judgment. I think they deserve love and compassion. And so I want to give that message to young people. Don't give up. Life will change. It's not static. It will change. And obstacles can be overcome. I just wish when I was young that I would have, but maybe that was meant to be. I was supposed to. This was my test. This was an exam, I think, in my life. And I think it was just meant to be. That's just the way it is. But like I said, perseverance, determination, resilience, purpose, and resilience is so important. And resilience, when you have resilience, you exercise purpose, not just to survive, but to do something good for yourself and the world around you. So I think if people focus on that, even when times are tough, focus on the important things, and focus on that, and don't stay with it. I think you said that before. Stay with it. That is the important thing. Pull through. You will make it. That's my advice to all people.
I love it. I love it. So let them know. Let the Speakeasy podcast listeners know how they can connect with you, and where they can get the book as well.
Yeah, my book is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I also have a website, I have Instagram, Facebook. I have, I'm in there. Even though I was never very good at all these. I started very late with technology, but I'm glad I did it.
Great. So guys, all of the information will be down in the show notes. Definitely make sure you get a copy of it. It's From Rubble to Champagne, and many of us can relate to, if not one, many of the stories that Vivianne shared with us today. We are very appreciative of her being a guest on the show. And listen, this is all about you being able to move forward, you being able to connect and get the support that you need. So make sure that you reach out when necessary and get that support, have the conversation, because sometimes it's just the one conversation that can definitely change everything for you.
You could not have said that better. There's one person in your life can change can change your whole life. And there are many teachers, in as we go through life, and sometimes we don't recognize them. But one person or one good book, can change lives.
Yes, indeed.
It depends how focused you are, how much you want to change. There's a proverb: the student is ready. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And there's a lot to that.
Absolutely awesome, guys. I hope you guys were taking notes. If not, go back, because you may need to jot a few things down. I appreciate you, because guess what? Without the Speakeasy podcast listeners, there would be no Speakeasy podcast. And guys, I'm your host, Altavis. And until next time, don't forget to press it out. See ya.